Hi, it's Davina. I'm in my You're Brainstorming Wrong t-shirt. We are in my kitchen, and today I'm going to use my all-purpose baking mix to make a fancy breakfast. So this year, as happens every once in a while, Christmas Eve was on a Thursday, Christmas Day was on a Friday, and then you have the weekend, which means also New Year's Eve is a Thursday, and New Year's Day is a Friday, and then you have the weekend, which means a lot of people end up with a 4-day weekend. Now, I usually only have 2 fancy breakfasts that I can pull out at a time, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. Usually it's French toast on Saturday, and on Sunday I do a toasted oatmeal and nut oatmeal dish. But on a 4-day weekend, I need something else to pull out, and my fallbacks are usually pancakes or waffles. But because it's the holidays, I decided I'd go even fancier, which means I'm gonna do either crepes turned into Blintzes or Swedish pancakes that are stuffed. Now, the difference between a biscuit mix, a pancake mix, and a waffle mix, if you look on a box of Crusties or Bisquick, it's all just on how much oil and water and eggs you add to it. And it's really the same between just a regular pancake and making a thin crepe or a Swedish pancake. But, you know, what have I got going on here? Well, I could go from scratch and just make the mix up, but I've already got everything in a general proportion from that pre-made biscuit mix that I already have. So if I want to have this as a thin crepe or a Swedish pancake, what do I need to do? Well, it's almost like a waffle mix, which is a batter that you pour in, but you're going to need to add in a little bit of extra oil. And crepes are slightly chewier than Swedish pancakes. Swedish pancakes are a little bit lacier and a little bit browner and crispier because they have more oil in it. Crepes have a little bit more egg. Of course, both of them have more oil and egg than the usual pancake mix. So, instead of going all from scratch, I'm going to start with my pre-made mix. I've got in here about 2 cups of my pre-made mix, and it's got dairy in it. It's already got a solid oil. I think it's coconut powder that I used in it. It's already got some sugar in it, already has some baking powder in it, already has the flour. It's got all of those things in this already. I just need to up the amount of liquid, up the amount of oil, and up the amount of egg, because though this has powdered egg in it, I need a little bit more to hold those thin crepes or Swedish pancakes together as they're cooking in the pan. So let me take you over to the other side. Here we are on the other side of my kitchen, and I've got all the liquids in the blender because I want these to be really, really smoothed through, and sometimes the egg can be a little bit finicky in beating, so I'm gonna let my blender do it. I've just got 1 egg in here, all of the water necessary to hydrate the egg, hydrate the milk, and hydrate the solid oil. So I've got all that in there, plus about a 1/4 cup more oil and 1 more egg, and that should be enough to get that thinness and crispiness, as well as with the egg, the structure necessary to hold together those very thin cakes as I flip them over. But wait, before I get into adding the dries to the wets for my batter, I really should talk about fillings, because you need to do fillings before you make your crepes, because if you wait, then you have crepes drying out that need to be filled. Now, I honestly like Swedish pancakes a little bit more than crepes. I always have, ever since, going to the House of Pancakes with my grandparents. I've got some, honestly, this should be Lingonberry, it's currants, but Lingonberry is the best on Swedish pancakes. And I've got Swedish cream. But I could also do some fresh sliced fruit. I could just squeeze some lemon and do some powdered sugar over it if I wanted to have something very simple. Date spread or any other fancy jams are great. If you want to make a stuffed crepe, you're going to need to stuff it with a cheese. Now, ricotta cheese is good, adding a little bit of sugar and maybe some spices and stuff. I find that a lot of people like to put in a citrus. I make my own marmalade. I can make a lot of my own jams. I'm really good with plums, but I like making my own marmalade. I'll mix that in with equal parts of cottage cheese and cream cheese. Now, this cream cheese is already going to be making a cheesecake, so I'm not going to do the stuffed Blintzes like that, but I'm probably going to do the Lingonberry with Swedish cream and some fresh fruit, because I think that would be really nice for this holiday. Maybe a little squeeze of lemon on top. So now that I've decided on that and I have this all made up, I will now work on the wets and the dries. But if I needed to make the filling, I would do that now. I would warm up the cream cheese to room temperature, blend that with the cottage cheese or the ricotta cheese and the marmalade to make that Blintz filling. Otherwise, I'll be scrambling to make that while my crepes or Swedish pancakes are drying out, trying to stay warm in the oven. So now that we've decided what we want to do, I'm going to blend this. You know what? I'm going to add in a couple drops of vanilla before I hit blend. All right, so we've got our 2 cups of our baking mix and basically 2 cups of liquid, combining water, egg, and oil in this. Now, I know it looks like more because I just beat it, but honestly, that's a bunch of foam and bubbles. So, to keep it from clumping, I'm going to stir as I pour in, which requires a little bit of pat your head, rub your belly action. There we go. Everything from the edge. Now, some people would put this all into the blender. I mean, I suppose you could, but I find this works just fine. Okay, that's very runny, and it's supposed to be that runny because these are going to be extremely thin when we get them onto our pan. All right, what kind of pan to use? Some people use nonstick. Well, I've actually decided I don't really like nonstick because it always gets scratched around any rivets. It starts to blister. Cheap nonstick, not good. Expensive nonstick, expensive. And I can often get really good, thick bottom steel pans a lot less expensively than high quality nonstick. So I do metal, and I use butter to grease it, particularly with crepes or Swedish pancakes, because it just makes it taste so good. If you're a coconut oil person, that's fine. If you like regular spray oils or something like that, that's okay too. But I just find that butter taste so good. So, which of these 2 pans am I going to use? A lot of people have a pan like this, and that's just fine. You put the batter in, you roll it around until it goes up on the edge a bit, and then you cook it until you watch it curve just a little bit, and then you can flip it. Unless you're making a Dutch baby, in which case you just kind of let it do that. But you flip it, and then you cook the other side just really briefly, and then you put it in a stack in your oven underneath a damp towel, to just keep it warm. I actually like this skillet pan. It's actually made in France. So maybe this was supposed to be a crepe pan because it's very flat, a very shallow edge on it. So it's going to be a lot easier to get underneath a crepe that's just made to the base size. But I use this for everything. I use this for eggs. I use this for pancakes. I use this for, English muffins. It's used for a lot of things in my kitchen. So this is actually my go-to. And this guy I'm gonna put away. So here I am, I've got my pan heating up. I'm gonna start at medium. Honestly, your first pancake or crepe usually doesn't turn out well. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's something that has to do with residual oils or consistent heat or just nervousness on the side of the cook. I like to grease my pans in this manner. I partially unwrap a stick of butter and then I rub it around like that. I know that's gonna horrify some people because now I've got like crumbs and stuff on the edge of my butter, but that's just how I do it, and I will just live with having dirty butter. Okay, I could have used a pitcher, but I like using a little ladle. A soup ladle is sometimes just a little bit too much, and this small ladle I'm gonna need to ladle a couple spoonfuls out, but I just find it's a little bit more control so I don't overfill. A little bit, getting it to the edges, and we let it be. And yeah, there are some little clumps of the dry stuff there. I suppose if I had put it in the blender that wouldn't be there, but then this whole thing would be so frothy. I don't want to turn my back on this either because it's so thin that it is already cooking through. You can see the color difference. You can see where there's just a little bit that is still liquid. I'm gonna wait until I see this edge slightly more brown, and then I'm gonna flip. See how it's making these little burps at the edges? That tells me I'm almost there. I love this little lacy edge. That's what I like about Swedish pancakes. Crepes sometimes don't get lacy edges. I broke it. It's all right, it's all right. Now, unlike regular pancakes where you can kind of flip them, crepes really require you to do more of a fold, and I suppose I could use chopsticks to fold this over, but come on, don't tear, don't tear. There, okay, a little bit of a tear, but look at that nice browning on that edge. That's something that you mostly get with Swedish pancakes because that extra oil. Crepes, more egg, less oil, which means less of that, what is it, the Maillard? Maillard? Yeah, I think it's Maillard, in fact. There we go. There's the first one, and it's going into my warming plate to then go into my oven. And like I said, the first one's always ugly. This wasn't terrible. I just lost some of the middle of it. So I'm gonna scrape that, move that to the edge, put more of my crummy butter on it, and start the next one. Okay, now cover this up with a damp towel, pop it into the oven, keep watching that pancake, and you're just going to be in and out of the oven, so I need to move my camera back. So I mentioned Dutch babies. Dutch babies, you basically use this exact same batter, maybe add in a little bit of extra sugar, and then instead of putting it in a very thin pan, you would put it in a well-buttered cast iron pan, maybe something smaller than this, and you would just put in a lot of that batter and let it just cook all on one side until it's cooked all the way through. And then just top it with some lemon powdered sugar. You could put some jam on it, whipped cream. Dutch babies are almost the exact same batter, just cooked in a slightly different way. So, crepe versus Swedish pancake. Swedish pancake, because it has more oil, it gets this browning, lacing edge. Crepe, if I had, instead of just 1 egg, added in 2 eggs and had even less oil, that would have been more like a crepe, and I would want to keep those very, very pale until I had them stuffed. And then maybe once they were stuffed, recook them, kind of like a fried burrito. Yeah, but Swedish pancakes, I just really like them a little bit more than French crepes. Let's take a look at the other side. Not bad. Now I just need to put this in with the stack. So this is how I'm going to serve it. Nice little warm thing of the Swedish pancakes, Swedish cream. I've got my currant jam and a little bit of honey and some fresh sliced pear to go with it.
Thank you for joining me in making our own homemade baking mix into a fancy breakfast. Again, I just like Swedish pancakes a little bit better than crepes because they have that crispy, lacy edge and a little bit of a fluffy center, and you avoid the French curse of it just not being good enough, because you're not making a crepe, you're making a pancake, a Swedish pancake. Again, thank you for joining me. I hope this has inspired you, and have a great day.